Dr. Joe DeMarco, chiropractor and owner of OcraMed Health. On today's video, we're going to discuss how to get rid of some of the chronic shoulder pain that you've been experiencing in the gym by doing some work on the pec major. Before we get into today's material, if you haven't done so already, take a moment right now, subscribe to my channel, OcraMed Health on YouTube, click that little bell notification. It notifies you every time I upload a new video. And at the end of today's video, if you found the information helpful, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. So if you're working out, one of the most common areas to have chronic kind of pain, like that gives people a lot of problems in the gym, is the shoulder joints. In particular, as we get older, as we're in our 30s and into our 40s and 50s and 60s, the shoulders tend to be a problem in the gym. It hurts to press, it hurts to hang, lots of noises, clicking and cracking and things like that. It's just a problematic area. Now, why is that? Well, first of all, the shoulders themselves are such a movable area. I mean, what other area of the body can move like the shoulders? I mean, 360s, the arms can go in all these different directions. It's awesome. It allows us to do a lot of incredible things, and it allows us to move in an amazing way, and we can do a lot of things, from hanging to pressing to all sorts of fun stuff, right? However, there's always a price to pay when you have that much mobility, and the shoulder is a perfect example of that, and that's why people have a lot of shoulder discomfort, and it can become chronic. Now, look at the shoulder itself. It's like you got to look at the shoulder as like a shoulder complex as opposed to just a single joint. And the reason it's more of a complex is if you look at the shoulder and you have your clavicle or collarbone here, on one end you're going to form a joint here, which is your sternoclavicular, or what commonly known as the SC joint. As you come out on the other end of the clavicle, you form your acromioclavicular joint, or what's known as the AC joint. You have the glenohumeral joint, which is the main shoulder joint. You have your scapula, which is gliding in all different directions as we're moving our shoulders. There's a lot of moving parts, and when you have a lot of moving parts, you have a lot of potential for a lot of problems. And a lot of times, as we get older, it gets worse because these joints start getting a little arthritic, they're not moving as well, and it just adds to our problems, okay? However, the shoulder, a lot of times, people will start getting discomfort in the shoulder on a regular basis when they get workout, or maybe after they work out, their shoulders are sore, and and it can become chronic because they keep looking at, okay, what's wrong with my shoulder? What's wrong with my shoulder? And a lot of times, you have to start looking outside of the box. If there's nothing actually going on at the glenohumeral joint, a lot of times it's one of these other areas that can be a problem, that can be causing your problem. And a common spot that I find when it comes to kind of ongoing shoulder problems is it has to do with the restriction in the motion of the clavicle. The clavicle a lot of times can get restricted, and when the clavicle is not moving properly, it can put stress into the SC joint, the AC joint, the glenohumeral joint, and start causing a lot of problems when we're trying to hang. That clavicle isn't moving correctly. We're going to do chin-ups or pull-ups, pressing motions. That clavicle's not moving correctly, and all this stuff will translate into shoulder pain. And one of the main causes of this clavicle not moving has to do with the pec major muscle. In particular, it has to do with the upper part of the pec major, which is known as the clavicular portion of the pec major, which I've marked off roughly with some athletic tape here. So the pec major and the clavicular portion of the pec major actually comes off of the inside half of the clavicle. And it runs from off of the clavicle, and it comes down and attaches to what's known as the greater tubercle of the humerus, basically the upper part of the arm bone. It attaches in here, okay? Now the pec major itself, just as for the whole pec major, there's three portions that we're not going to talk about all three portions. But the pec major, one of the main functions is basically bringing the arm down, what we call adduction, and then what we call internal rotation. So it's bringing the arm this way and internally rotating the shoulder, okay? The clavicular portion also has a function, a primary function itself, and it's flexing the shoulder up to about 90 degrees. Matter of fact, if you just put your fingers on the upper part of your pec right underneath your clavicle and bring your arm up like this, you can feel that the clavicular portion contract as you make this motion, okay? What will happen over time, and this is why it tends to bother people as they get a little older, because more time passes and there's more wear and tear on that upper part of the pec major. That muscle builds up a lot of fascial adhesions. It is a lot of trauma over the years, all this heavy pressing motions and all this hanging motions. That it puts a lot of stress in this area of the body. You get a lot of micro traumas. You get to start building up a lot of scar tissue, a lot of fascial adhesion. This nice elastic portion of the pec major loses its elasticity over time. It becomes fibrous. It becomes leathery. It doesn't stretch. And what happens is this muscle, this upper part of the pec is not stretching anymore. It tends to pin down the clavicle. It restricts clavicular motion. It's going to have an effect on the entire shoulder joint itself, or the entire shoulder complex itself. And it's going to affect your ability to perform certain exercises. You're going to notice you can't get that arm back when you're doing presses as well. You start to hang and you hear all sorts of cracking and popping and all that kind of stuff going on every time you jump up on the bar. The SC joint sounds and the AC joint sounds like it explodes every time you hang. You right? I mean, we all experience it at some point, but it's all because a lot of times that clavicular portion of the pec major has built up scar tissue. It's restricting clavicular motion, and it starts causing shoulder pain. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you some techniques on how we're going to break up the clavicular portion. We're going to break up that scar tissue in the clavicular portion of the pec major. Okay, so let's do some fascial release work on the clavicular portion of the pec major. Everything I show you today you can use just the index and middle finger, because we need to get underneath that clavicle, and these two fingers can actually work pretty good to dig underneath the clavicle. I'm going to be using a Tai Chi ball from OcraMed Health. This is a regular sized Tai Chi ball. Lots and lots of little spikes on this ball. So I prefer to use this, because I'm going to be able to dig in deeper into that tissue to get a better release. But if you don't have one, that's okay. Like I said, you can get away with your fingers, but I prefer, this is my tool of choice when I'm doing this type of fascial release work, okay? One quick note on fascial release work: make sure you're warmed up, your tissue is warmed up before you do fascial release work. That goes for any part of the body. You don't sit up out of bed and start digging into muscle and fascia, all right? Warm up, move around, swing those arms around, get some blood flowing through the tissue before you start digging at it, okay? So just a word of warning, because fascial release work can make the area a little sore the next day, and in particular, if you work on cold muscle and cold tissue, the chance of soreness is greater the next day. So make sure you warm up, all right? All right, so first off, we just want to do some general digging around in there to try to break up some of the scar tissue first. So I'm going to just take the ball. I'm going to get underneath the clavicle. Now the clavicle obviously is a very bony area of the body. If you get the ball on top of the clavicle, you will know right away it's going to hurt. It's not a comfortable area to have a spiky ball. So you'll know where the bone is and where the muscle is. Okay. So we're going to go underneath the clavicle. Now remember, the clavicular portion is attached to the inside half of the clavicle. So I'm going to go from the beginning of the clavicle about halfway. Okay. And I'm going to get that ball, and I'm going to just go back and forth with as much pressure as I can take underneath the clavicle onto the upper portion of that pec major, that clavicular portion. I'm going to put firm pressure. Gauge your pressure. If you've never done this before, start off really light and see how you feel the next day. And every time you do it, try to add a little more firm pressure to the area. But don't start off too aggressively if you've never done this type of work before. So I'm going to kind of just dig through here, and I'm going to try to follow it, the course of the muscle, which goes to the humerus. So kind of follow it through, just like that. And not only am I going to go in this direction, but I'm going to go up and down too, kind of dig in at that tissue up and down, all the way. And I'm going to spend about 60 to 90 seconds just kind of digging around. I'm going to make circles. I'm going to do all different directions. I'm just trying to get in there and knead through that tissue to break up some of that scar tissue, okay? If you find a particular area that you really have a really good knot, you can really feel like a sore, tended knot in there, like a real clump of adhesion, spend an extra 30 seconds or so just on that one spot and spend a little extra time trying to break that up, okay? But in general, 60 to 90 seconds. When you get done, it should be red, it should be pink. It's probably got it's got a lot of blood flow now. We're just gushing blood into that tissue, which is great. We get a lot of blood flow, so it's going to get discolored. It's going to get pinkish, reddish in that area. Next, we're going to get a little more intense. We're going to try to add in what we call some active motion as we pin the tissue with the ball, all right? So as we talked about first, the pec major itself, the main motion is that it brings the arm back to our side and it internally rotates the shoulder, okay? So when we do the release work on it, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to bring the arm away from the body and externally rotate the shoulder, okay? So I'm going to bring my arm across and internally rotate the shoulder like that. And then I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to put firm pressure. I'm going to try to pin that tissue. So I'm going to get under the clavicle. I'm going to push in and I'm going to pull midline. I'm going to pull in this direction. And I'm going to hold that tissue and pin it the best I can through this entire motion. So hold firm pressure and now bring the arm away from the body. And as it's coming away, start to externally rotate that arm up and just stretch it out as far as you can and don't let go of that pressure on the muscle itself. And then hold it out there for about 8 to 10 seconds and then just let it relax. Bring it across again. Once again, press firmly, pull and press in. And again, repeat. Bring it out, externally rotate. Hold it for about 8 to 10 seconds and get a nice stretch through there as you're pinning the tissue and come back. And every time I'm coming back and I release it, I try to move a little different spot. I mean, we're only working in a small area, but I'll hit several different little movements. I won't just keep the ball in one place. I'll move it into several different spots in there. And I'll keep trapping and bringing the arm out. Trapping and bringing the arm out. And, in general, overall, I may do, 10 different times where I may pin and then stretch, and then pin and then stretch. Play it by ear. If you find it like an area that you can feel like a real knot, do a few extra in that one spot. That's okay, but pin and stretch for that whole area by bringing the arm out and externally rotating the shoulder. Now we talked about the clavicular portion. One of its functions is it brings the shoulder, it flexes the shoulder to 90 degrees. When you do that, you can feel that contraction in there. And we're going to do some work from this position. So I'm going to take the ball, I'm going to bring my arm up into this position. I'm going to get the ball here. I'm going to get right underneath the clavicle and I'm going to actually push in and I'm going to pull down. And from this position, I'm going to bring the arm back and I'm going to bring it back as far as I can, just like that. Now, if you want, you can hold on to something, grab a bench or something and give it a little extra stretch. You don't need to. You can just pull this arm back as far as it'll go. And as you do it, just keep that muscle trapped, pushing in and pulling down, and just bring the arm back as far as you can. Now, I feel like I get a better release is if at the same time as I do this, I bring my head up slightly and I get into this position. I feel like I get a much better release on it. And so I would recommend doing that, just bringing the head back slightly and then come back up, move the ball a little bit, pin it, come back, get a release. Once again, you're going to hold it for about 8 to 10 seconds and then let it go. Come back this way and repeat that several times. Then you're going to do some release here where you can actually, instead of pinning and pushing down, I'm going to pin and I'm going to pull across. And again, I'm pinning and pulling across now. And again, repeat that motion though. Bring it across like that. And once again, I bring the head back. You get a better release when you have the head up a little bit. So bring the arm up, pin and pull across, and I would do several that way. So several where I pin and pull down, several where I pin and pull across. It's going to be definitely red in here. It's going to be, I can just feel even doing a few passes. It can get a little tender, a little sore. That's okay. But that's the techniques we're going to use. We're going to, like I said, if you find a particular spot, do a little extra work, but we're going to do several motions in there, pinning and stretching, where we're coming out and externally rotating, and then coming in this direction where we pin and pull down, and where we pin and pull across, and getting that motion. Just doing it a few times, you will immediately feel a nice release underneath the clavicle and the pec. Your clavicle, move your arm around after you do it a few times, hang a little bit after you do it. You're going to feel that this clavicle is starting to move better. Now, it may not last after just doing it once. A couple hours after you do it, it might tighten back up. But that's why you're going to do these techniques. I would work them every other day. I wouldn't get too aggressive with this area. I would work it, take the next day off, and then the following day work it again. And I would do it, you gotta be consistent. This is fascial release work. We're breaking up scar tissue. This does not happen overnight. Breaking up scar tissue is like peeling layers off of an onion, okay? So it takes time. So for the next 4 to 6 weeks, every other day, start working on these techniques and then see how your shoulder pain and your movement is feeling after 4 to 6 weeks. And let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'd love to know how you're making out with these techniques. All right, so good luck. I hope those techniques help you. Don't give in to, just because something starts to hurt. And I hear too many people that are like, in their 40s and 50s and 60s that tell me that they don't work out anymore because their shoulder hurts, or they don't bench press anymore because their shoulder hurts. There's ways to fix these things, and this is one way. It's not going to fix everyone's problem, but this is one way. And I've personally have used these techniques to help myself, and I had great success with it, and I wanted to share with you because I feel like, too many people give up. They have pain, they get told by their doctors that, oh, you got too much arthritis in there, you better stop working out, or you can't do this anymore because of your arthritis. You know what I mean? That doesn't have to be like that. You can work on these things, you can fix these things, you can keep working out, and you can keep lifting. I don't care. I firmly believe that you can do it at any age. You can be in that gym working out, okay? All right, so best of luck to all of you. Hey, if you haven't done so already, take a moment right now. Subscribe to my channel. I really, truly appreciate it. OcraMed Health on YouTube. Click that little bell notification. Notifies you every time we upload a new video. If you haven't done so already, pick up a copy of my new book. It's called A Fitness Carol. It's available on Amazon, or go to www.afitnesscarol.com. Those Tai Chi balls that we used in today's video are available at my website, www.ocramedhealth.com. So check that out. Questions about exercises or injuries, just leave a comment in the comment section down below. I do the best I can to get back to everybody. And don't forget, OcraMed Health is here to keep you fit forever.